What's coming up in today's episode?
I think lots of people wear different masks all the time, right? The mask at home, a mask at work, mask with their friends. But you wore something very similar to a mask in the sense of a cloak. And instead of carrying quotas, you were carrying a little lantern around a castle.
It's a BBC programme called The Traitors, where there are 22 contestants placed in a castle in Scotland.
How having a sales background helped him get to the final four.
Use influence and skills to get people on your side. Otherwise, if you don't, you're gone.
Did you start to think, okay, look, I'm going to take all of my learnings and use a strategy? What was going through your head?
We're just guessing, but you're just clutching at straws most of the time. You think, oh, you're a traitor. Why? Or you scratched your nose. Or you sneezed, or you're a traitor. How do you know what these people are like outside the castle? So you don't know if they've changed their body language, has changed, you don't know what they look like outside of the castle. So you're trying to pick up on little changes in behaviour.
So you didn't openly admit, therefore, you had like 20-year career in sales?
I don't think so, no, I didn't know. I started lying from day one. People say the word sales and they think it's a naughty word. They say, take the word sales away from it. All you're doing is providing a solution to people's problems.
I think with sales, there is just that perception of manipulation. Do you think if you would have been quite open and introduced, look, hi everyone, I'm Andrew and I work in sales, do you think you would have got as far as you did? Andrew, did you used to be crap at sales?
I did used to be terrible at sales, yeah. I applied for a job basically in Lloyds Bank, and I thought it was a good place to start my career, I suppose, in Lloyds. I was one of the best in the UK. I went on numerous recognition events in London. I treated my customers as if it was my mother and father, for example, so I could sleep at night. I never missold a product in my life.
In 1999, before he started in sales, his life changed overnight.
I was driving my car on the 20th of August 1999. I hit a curb on the left-hand side, on the passenger side, and I flipped the car into the right-hand side. You know, why did it happen to me? Why? I'm only really in acceptance. I'm not there fully yet, I don't think, but I'm getting there. I'm much better now than I was a couple of years ago, but I had to work really hard on myself, and what I did...
Hello and welcome to another episode of the I Used to Be Crap at Sales podcast. I'm Mark Akers, co-founder and head of sales here at My Sales Coach and your host. We call the podcast that because it's true, and all of our guests say the same. So who am I joined by today? Well, if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, you'll know we usually speak to sales leaders, founders, top performing account executives, people in the trenches of SaaS, sales and startups. But today's guest, well, let me start by saying they have an incredible story to share. For over 25 years, they've worked in corporate sales, including 16 years at Lloyds Bank, where they were a top performing sales individual and manager. They sold complex financial products, led large teams, and seen the highs of lows of the pressure cooker targets and relationship-driven sales. But in 1999, before he started in sales, his life changed overnight. A horrific car crash left them with a traumatic brain injury, months and months of recovery, and a new understanding of what resilience truly means. Despite all this, you might know them for a different reason. You might know them for donning a cloak, sneaking around a castle, carrying a lantern more than you do carrying a sales quota. That's right. I'm really excited to say this. My guest is Andrew Jenkins, and he's here today to talk about his career in sales, his journey through trauma, the mindset behind reinvention, and what really goes on in reality TV. Andrew, we normally start the episode with a yes-no question, but I feel we need to give the audience the context, as people might not associate you with sales today, but you spent over 2 decades in it. Give us the high level. When it comes to sales, what were you selling and where?
Well, for 18 years, I sold financial products in Lloyds Bank. I was a senior manager in Lloyds. And then when I left the bank, I went into corporate insurance. I was insuring large businesses for their liability insurance, building stock. So I'd go to large businesses like stadiums, construction company, anybody who had a business, really, you legally had to have insurance. So I did that for 8 years then.
So now we've got that context and a rich and long history in sales. Let's start with the yes-no question that we always start the podcast with. Andrew, did you used to be crap at sales?
I did used to be terrible at sales, yeah.
And how crap are we talking on a scale of 1 to 10?
10.
So, well, let's get into it. First of all, how did you get into the world of sales?
I applied for a job basically in Lloyds Bank. There was a job being advertised. It was called a personal account manager at the time. And I thought back, 25 years ago probably, I thought, great career, big company. Lloyds, one of the biggest banks in the UK, and I thought it was a good place to start my career, I suppose, in Lloyds.
What were you selling and who to?
I sit with lots of clients, I suppose, day-to-day customers, and sell financial products. So from anything from a credit card to home insurance to loans, savings accounts, so anything you could think of. Financial, I suppose, really. And then also I'd refer clients on then to financial advisors to look after their pensions and life cover. And also I'd refer them onto a mortgage arranger then to discuss their purchasing their houses and things.
And what kind of salesperson would you say you were? Would you say you were more process, more people, relationships, or numbers? What kind of salesperson were you?
So people who come in with a problem, I used to solve that problem. So I'm a good listener. I'm a great people person. And I'm good at building relationships and deepening relationships, because I had hundreds of customers who would only deal with me. They'd follow me around wherever branch I was working, and they'd come and deal with me, or I was helping them to build something for the future. And I say to people, you're basically providing a solution to somebody's problems. And if you're not, you're misselling. Why would you sell something to somebody who they don't need it? So I'm a people person. I'm a listener. I sit down, listen to the person for probably an hour and 2 hours first. I wouldn't mention products or anything first until I'd listen to them, found out what their goals were, their aspirations, and what plans they wanted, and what kept them up at night, what they were stressed about, what they were worried about. And at the end, then I'd provide solutions to them problems.
Just based on the way you describe that, I can tell you have a deeper understanding of sales than lots of people in that profession, right? Obviously not people listening to this podcast. People listening to this podcast get it, and they'll just be nodding along listening to you. But I'm guessing you had to learn that. When you first got a sales job, you wouldn't have known that. How did you learn that was the approach to sales? I
suppose like lots of things in life, really, you learn from failed mistakes, and mistakes in life you learn from. But I'm very good when I don't achieve something in life, or when I don't, hit a target. This world we live in nowadays, where everybody's a winner, there's no failure. I think it's a load of nonsense. So when I do my talks, for example, I tell people failure is not a bad thing. I said you learn more from failure. But what I was good at, when I didn't achieve something, I used to sit back and think, right, why did I not achieve that? And why did the customer not purchase that item off me? I would never blame a customer ever. I'd always look at myself in the mirror first. If somebody didn't buy something off me, I think, well, I didn't get them to see that. I didn't make them see the need for that product or service. So I never blame the customer. Lots of people say, oh, the customer's a terrible customer, this, customer that. I said, no, look inwards first to yourself. They obviously didn't see the need for that product. So I just learned from trial and error, I suppose, over many, many years.
And I think that's the thing, like, many years, it didn't come to you straight away. Did you have someone that sort of put their arm around you and helped you? Because it sounds like you become that later on in your career. I was reading about how you referred to as like an agony aunt, for example. But in those early stages, did you have someone that sort of really put their arm around you and helped?
Sorry, I've always been a people person. I like talking to people. So I've enjoyed that. So it doesn't matter what sales job I did. It doesn't matter what the end product is I'm selling. The process is pretty much the same, really, whether that's in insurance, in banking, whatever it was. It's the same sort of process. In the end product, the product at the end it didn't matter. Cars, it doesn't matter. Yeah, but I had a lot of mentors I worked with. Some good, some bad. But what I did, I take the good things from the good people and implement it myself, and leave the bad stuff behind. So it was taking the good from all the people around me, and then using that for my own to carve my own craft, I suppose.
And talk to me about, like, you said you had some good mentors, some not so good mentors. What's the difference for you?
Well, people are like as well documented. The PPI scandal was huge in Lloyds Bank. The loss at the bank that cost the bank billions of pounds, and I saw people, ticking boxes on forms the customer didn't know about, ticking the PPI on a credit card, for example. You just tick a box on their form, the application form. So 99%, 95% of the time, the customer didn't even know about it, I suppose. So I wouldn't take practices like that, which is obviously fraud, I suppose, or misselling. So there was lots of things used to go on. This is like a long, long time ago, because the pressure to perform was massive. I mean, and it was huge. The pressure put on staff to perform and to hit their targets was huge. But I'm lucky. I'm a strong person, so I never buckled to the pressure. I never gave in to that, because I'm a quite an outspoken person. I wouldn't do anything. I don't believe in myself. So if I didn't believe in something, I wouldn't do it, and I'd stand up for myself as well. Whereas a lot of people buckle under the pressure.
I can tell you've got a real strong sense of like right and wrong, and again, I really like the way you're describing that. But I probably mumbled my words, but when it comes to, you were talking about good mentors and not so good mentors, people would call them coaches, for example. What is it about a good mentor that separates them from not so good?
The not so good ones, they're quite direct, and the feedback is not very constructive. Whereas the good mentors, they let you come up with the answers, for example. So they'll guide you. They'll ask probing questions, umbrella questions, lots of different types of questions. Because every single person has got the answers inside us. We all got the answers inside us. We just got to find out. We need somebody to help and coach us and mentor us and nurture us for us to come up with our own answers. Whereas the top salespeople, they were quite egos. A lot of them had, egos. They were right, fixed mindset. It was their way or no way. You do it like this. This is the way you do it. You can't copy somebody else's sale. You can, but it's not authentic. It's not real. So if you're trying to copy somebody else's sales model or sales process or whatever, it's going to be hard for you to do that then eventually. So yeah, it's somebody listening to you. They don't judge you. And they just sit in the trenches with you and they give you good constructive feedback and they ask you more. They ask you more of the questions, really, not just giving you all the answers and all the questions.
It feels like, again, I appreciate that's your world now and we'll get to that, but it feels like having the right coach, someone that has mentored and worked with you, has had a big impact on the success of your career. You said earlier on how you were the top performer there and you kind of indicated, but I just want to dig into a little bit more. What was it that separated you from, let's say, someone in the middle of the road? They had the ability, but they weren't doing it. What separated you to them?
I was driven, I suppose. I know I like hitting targets. I'm a very competitive person. I'm sporty, a huge sporting background, and I wanted to be a winner. I wanted to be the best I could, and yeah, and I'm hardworking, but also I did things correct. I did things right. So people used to come into the bank, for example, asking to see me. So I used to do outbound calling, for example. I had to do that every day to ring in the people I wanted to see. But also I used to get lots of people coming to me. A recommendation is probably the best referral you can get. So I used to get their friends, their family, their kids, their grandparents coming to see me because they liked me, they trusted me, and they felt comfortable with me. And they thought, go and see Andrew. Go and see Andrew. Go and see Andrew about this loan. So I used to get lots and lots of people coming to see me off my previous work, off referrals from other people, which is the best sale you can get, really. I
couldn't agree more, and it's just something that we see all the time. Referrals are just the best way to win new business, but so few sales reps ask for them. And I appreciate this was more you were getting them because of the good work that you did. Here's what I want to ask. I suppose you talk about being really competitive, love hitting targets, but on the other hand, always selling the right thing only if they need it. And that can be a real trap for people. Morally want to do the right thing, but then we've got pressure, we've got targets. Our jobs do depend on us being successful. How did you battle that? Because there must have been times when you weren't top of the leaderboard that month or that quarter. You could have sold more, but it wasn't the right thing to do. How did you navigate that? Because that must be tricky.
Yeah, cool. I've seen that. I've seen it so many times, and it is hard with pressure. But like I said, I've got good morals. I've been brought up properly by my parents to do right and wrong. I'd rather not hit my target, but doing it in a correct way than hitting my target doing it the wrong way. To be honest, I can sleep at night. I got a conscience and I got morals, and I say I'd rather have the feedback or the repercussions off my boss because I'm strong. I can take it. I'm strong, and at the end of the day, I'm still a human. It doesn't mean I'm a bad person. And then, do you know what I mean? And it's just I was very good also as well at seeing the people, the high value ticket people, the one I needed to see to help me hit my target. Because in the branch, in the bank, every product we sold had a points value. So me individually in the branch had a points target every quarter. It was like 800,000 points. And every product we sold in the branch had a product value, a points value. So I was very good at when I did outbound calling, getting the lending, for example, the lending we did was the biggest ticket value, I suppose, or referring people for a mortgage, you get a huge amount of points. If you referred somebody to your mortgage advisor, they took out a mortgage, you get a week's target not far off. So, why would I want to work harder, not smarter? So I work in smarter, not harder. I'd refer more people for mortgages, for example. So I'm not doing the work then, really. I'd get them to come in, get them to see the need for it, refer them on to somebody else, and they do all the work then. So there was that, and also get a lending in, which was good, good points value. People had large credit card bills at 30, 40% APR, when I could do a loan from at 5%. So it's a no-brainer. And I was good at objection handling. I was very good at objection handling. People say, I don't want a loan. I said, well, we don't talk about loans. We go through everything. We'll have a big interview. So I don't talk about products at the start. And I say, basically, all you're doing is lending money, whether it's on a credit card, a store card, car finance. I said, take the label off all of that and just call it debt at the end of the day. But you're borrowing that debt at 30%. Why wouldn't you borrow that at 5%? It's a no-brainer, really. So, yeah, so it's about seeing the clients you want to see to help you hit your target, really.
I think one of the superpowers that it sounds like you've got that you haven't said out loud is being able to storytell, being able to bring what you're selling to the level of the prospect in a way in which it makes sense. And I think when it comes to like money and fun, people can be emotionally charged and not make the right decisions. And that's where you've stepped in as that trusted advisor, that consultant. And you've earned that because you've listened well, you've asked the right questions, you're looking to guide them down the path that they want to go down, and you're just there to help. So that makes a lot of sense.
A relationship build, it's gaining their trust, isn't it? It's gaining a person's trust, and also relationship building is so important in every job, everything in life. I said, well, not just sales. I think having a good relationship with someone and gaining their trust is really important, I think. And yeah, I did. Most of the time, I talk, like I said, I talked to the client when they came in. I talked to them about their friends, their family, their grandchildren, their weather, their holidays, just to get to know them, build a bit of a rapport, first of all. It's like when you walk into Curry's, for example, right? You walk into Curry's, or whatever you go, Curry's I call it, and you walk in and there's a little sales guy at the till, oh, we got this television, it's 10,000 pixels, and I'm looking at them thinking, you don't know what I'm going to use that telly for. If I was me, I'd come in and say, what are you going to use that telly for? What are you here today for? Which room are you going to use the telly in? What are you going to use it for? Playing video games, watching films? But no, somebody comes in, they'll try and sell you the most expensive telly in the world, or 3-piece suite. They don't know what you're going to use it for. So you're thinking, you're selling something to me. You're trying to fit a round peg in a square hole. Why not listen to me first and talk to me and find out what I want to use that product first before recommending products? There's so many people recommend a product before you even find out anything about that customer, which you're never going to sell.
And I tell you why that happens in my experience, and keen to hear if you agree, is because people rely on their product knowledge because they're not comfortable having the question, comfortable having the conversation and asking those questions because of fear of losing out and being attached to their targets. But you're right, you take a step back. What's wrong with your current telly? Like, why do you even need a new one? But so this, as I say, I think people listening to this podcast are just going to be nodding along to everything you're saying because they're already invested in their careers and doing extracurricular, like listening to podcasts. We'll wrap up this section of the podcast, Andrew. I want to understand what actually made you leave the finance world. You're a top performer, you're doing well, you're leading teams, you've got a big relationship network. What made you leave this world?
I didn't agree the direction. I left the banking world, to be honest, because I didn't agree with the direction the bank was going in. I was there for nearly 18 years roughly, and then I was a good performer, and I handed my notice in, and the director came down from Lloyds, the director, one of the bank, and said, where are you going? He said, you've got a great career, you're well thought of. And I said, I don't enjoy the direction the bank is going. The last couple of years, I didn't enjoy my job anymore, because I understand why they were doing it. I'm just a number. Lloyds Bank are huge. I'm a nobody in Lloyds Bank, but my boss used to say to me, you're swimming against the ocean, you're swimming against the tide all the time. I said, yeah, but I don't agree with it. You're forcing people to go online. When they come into the branch, they have to pay and using a machine. They all want to use internet, but I said my skill is sitting with clients, listening to them, deepening a relationship. My skill is relationship building. But the bank didn't want that anymore. And last going off, I was with a client, I dealt with this guy for about 10 years. He was in his 70s, he was a widow. I think sometimes you just come into the bank, he was lonely, I think, but he'd come in like twice a year. I'd sit with him. He had £800,000 in various savings accounts in Lloyds. He could have got better interest rates elsewhere, but he liked me, he trusted me. I dealt with his wife's bereavement. And he kept his money with us. And I was in the room with him one day. I was in there for about, I think it was 2 hours. I know, an hour and a half, 2 hours. I came out of the room to get a brochure. And my local director was in the branch. And he said to me, what are you doing in there? I said, I'll see Mr. Jones or whatever. He said, you've been in there an hour and a half. I said, so? I said, there's no egg timer on the table, is there? I said, I don't work. Like, your hour's up now. You got to go now. Don't work like a conveyor belt. I'll stay in there as long as it takes. He said, what are you selling him? I'm not selling him anything. I said, I'm making sure he got the best. I said, the reason that guy's money is with us is because of me. So I'll stay in there all day if I got to. I said, because £800,000, if we got that much in like savings, that means you could lend it out the other side as well. So, that guy can get better rates in Halifax, in, Principality, but he stays with me because he likes me, he trusts me. So I think, I don't work like that. I mean, I got a timer now for every customer I saw. I have a timer. I said, I can't work like that. So I left the bank to go into insurance. So even though the insurance is heavily regulated by the FCA, it's still quite old school. So you win a client, you insure their business, and they don't care who you're working for. If you're working for, it don't matter what insurance company you're working for, they like you, they trust you to insure their business, to protect their business. And you used to take them to rugby matches, take them for meals, go to restaurants. That's about relationship building. So I enjoyed that world. I did enjoy working in insurance. I only left it recently after, obviously I don't know what you're going to go into, but after my short TV stint, I left my insurance world after that then, about 17 months ago.
So we're definitely going to cover that. What I want to touch upon now, Andrew, is definitely a topic that I have not explored with a guest before, and I want you to share just what you're comfortable with, really. But you've openly talked about the crash that you had in 1999. I read about it, and it's hard to read about, right? Even though I don't know you, I appreciate we met at an event, but can you just, for anyone who's not heard this story before, at a level you're comfortable with, share with us what did happen?
I was driving my car on the 20th of August 1999, and there was 5 of us in the car in total. There was my partner at the time in the passenger seat, one of my best friend and his girlfriend in the back, and a girl I used to work with in the back. I hit a curb on the left-hand side on the passenger side, and I flipped the car onto the right-hand side. So I went out to the driver's side window. So I went out that door window. So my top half was out the car and my legs were in the footwell of the car. So my head and my arm, as you can see, my arm and my head were dragged along the floor for a couple of 100 yards along the tarmac. And when the car stopped sliding, it landed on top of me. So when the emergency services turned up with the vehicle, they were asking people in the car questions and they said, it's too late now. We think he's dead. So I'm not a ghost. I didn't die. Don't worry, I'm here. But I was in a really bad way. So I lost 6 pints of blood in my body and we got 8 pints of blood. So I lost nearly all my blood. I had to have 2 blood transfusions on the side of the road there and then. And the fire brigade had to pick the car up to get underneath the car, to work on me because it was on top of me. I went to one hospital in South Wales called the Royal Gwent in Newport, but there was nothing they could do for me there. So I had to have a police escort then down to another hospital in Wales because that's where neurology was and plastic surgery at the time. I took the top of my head completely off. I had no hair, no skin on top, nothing on top of my head at all. And I smashed my skull to pieces. I had a big hole in my skull, about that big probably. The first operation I had that night was to take all the bone out of my brain because I had a lot of bone embedded deep in my brain. So the surgeon had to take all that out of that was the first operation I had. I was in a coma then for 4 weeks. But obviously while all that was going on, my mother and father got the dreaded knock on the door from the policeman, the one the no parent wants, to say, you have to come with us now. Your son's been involved in a road traffic accident, an RTA. And they thought it was a little bump in the car. So they said, we'll get changed. We'll come with you now. And the policeman said, you haven't got time to get changed. You have to come with us now. It's critical. So they were taken to the first hospital where I was. As soon as they got to that hospital, I was on a trolley coming out of the hospital. We put in the back of an ambulance to be transferred to the second hospital. They weren't allowed to see me. I was in such a bad way. As you can imagine, my head being dragged along the tarmac wasn't a pretty sight. It's not a great sight now, but it was a lot better than it was. And then they basically had to follow in a police car. And they were also told that I wouldn't make the trip from one hospital to the other hospital, which is probably about 40 minutes or 35 minutes away. Yeah, so that's what happened. And I was in a coma for 4 weeks in intensive care, then fighting for my life.
It's tough to listen to that. I mean that in the right way, of course. Talk to me about the recovery journey. Like, physically, what did that entail?
When I was in my coma, my family were called in on a few occasions to say I wouldn't make it through the night. I got 3 brothers, 2 older brothers and 1 younger brother, my mum and dad, obviously. And then when I did start recovering, they said, from the scans we've done on him, he's got severe brain damage. There's lots of shadows on his brain, which means dead tissue. So they said, we don't think he's going to wake up. If he does wake up, he's not going to recognize anyone. He's not going to walk, talk, use his arms and legs ever again. So I won't be able to recognize anybody. So I woke up after 4 weeks in intensive care. I didn't know where I was or what had happened to me. My mother had to explain it to me. She was standing on my bedside, her and my dad, crying. Yeah, I didn't know where, they had to explain where I was, what had happened and everything. And then the doctors came round about 3 days later and 4 days later and told me I would never walk ever again. And my first response was, I said, I guarantee I'll walk at this hospital. And he said, you won't. And I said, I will. And I argued with the surgeon. And my mother said, it's embarrassing. You're lying in intensive care with all tubes coming out everywhere and a tracheotomy in my throat there. And the man is trying to tell you you're not going to walk again. And you're arguing, telling you will. And I did. I proved the doctors wrong. I learned to walk again. It took me about 2 weeks, I think it was. But when I first got out of bed, it was quite scary or frightening, I suppose, because I've trained for a long time. I trained since I was 14 years of age, a lot of rugby and train weights and everything. And I know mind muscle memory and everything. But when I got out of bed for the first time, I literally couldn't find my leg. I could not remember how to walk. And the physio had to pick my feet up, put one in front of the other. And after a couple of days, I remembered to walk again then. So it took me about 2 weeks to learn to walk again. I wasn't very steady, but I could walk. It was awful. The physical injuries were terrible, as you can imagine. My lungs collapsed. I caught MRSA, everything you could think of. But my biggest challenge was mental health, unbeknown to me, really. So I struggled with mental health for years. And my life was literally a car crash, excuse the pun, for many, many years afterwards.
And talking about mentally, what was that process like then to recover from that?
Disaster, to be honest. I was offered counselling after my accident or therapy. They say, well, you've been through horrendous. And I assumed I was a 21-year-old, ignorant, macho, testosterone-filled kid, invincible. Because I should talk about my upbringing in a second as well, but I think it's quite relatable, my upbringing. But so I refused counselling because I thought I would see somebody in a white coat who judge me, psychoanalyze me and try and get inside my head. And I thought, I'm not seeing them. I can't relate to them. They can't relate to me. So I refused counselling. I didn't see anybody. And my family background, quickly, I'll just go into that. I said I got 3 brothers, 2 older, 1 younger. And my dream, like lots of people in Wales, was to play rugby for Wales. And I probably would have done that. So from 5 years of age to 21, my dream was to play rugby for Wales. My brothers played rugby professionally, the 3 of us. So we all played very, very good standard of rugby. So at 21 years of age, my dream got taken off me. And I say to people, I said, I talk about toxic masculinity and positive masculinity in my talks now and everything. And I said, growing up, I didn't show any feelings and emotions, for example. I didn't think I could because as a man, you get told to suppress your feelings and emotions from a very young age. Don't cry. Girls cry. Don't be a baby. So I was brought up, obviously, in 3 brothers, competitive brothers as well. We don't show feelings. I didn't show my vulnerable side at all. And so I didn't talk to my family after the accident either. So we didn't speak about it for 20 or 24 years. Nobody spoke about it at all. So yeah, it was hard. And so I really struggled. So I get up every day, go off to work with a shirt and tie on, with a big smile on my face and life and soul of the party. Behind closed doors, I hated myself. Wish I was dead. Wish I wasn't here anymore. I hated what I looked like in the mirror. I couldn't accept my scars, called myself a freak every single day. My mother said it's heartbreaking for her to hear because, when listen to her own son call himself a freak every day was heartbreaking. And when people used to come to my parents' house to visit my mum and dad, I'd run upstairs and hide in my bedroom. I didn't want nobody to see me because I was a freak. I only started wearing short sleeve t-shirts for about 4 or 5 years ago. I used to wear long sleeve shirts or jumper. I hated my arm, my scar on my arm. And I self-sabotage anything good happening to me. It was a nightmare. I never tried to do anything. I never tried to take my own life. But there were some dark days. And when people tell me they got depression, they haven't. Most people haven't got it. They're having a bad day. Because with depression, this is what I think. I never got diagnosed or anything, but I used to lie in bed some days, looking up at the ceiling, crying my eyes out. To get out of bed was hard work. I had to physically drag myself out of bed every day. It was hard. It was like a real chore to get out of bed. I could have easily lay in bed, pulled a quilt over me and stayed there for months, to be honest. That would have been so much easier. So it was hard work to get out of bed, really. So my life was a disaster for many, many years, to be honest, after my crash.
I mean, again, really, really tough to hear that, but it's commendable how honest you're being and sharing that, because I think people don't hear that side, right? And how has that then changed your mindset and outlook in life? Like, how do you now approach challenges, adversity, given what you've gone through? I'm guessing it's given you a whole new perspective.
It's only been the last few years, really. So, 15 years after my accident, I went for counselling for the first time ever because, I was self-sabotaging things. I was upsetting people close to me, loved ones, and pushing people away. So eventually I went for counselling, and the woman I saw was amazing. So one tip I'll give anybody who's listening to this, if you're struggling, please go and see somebody. There's lots of people out there. Suicide rates are going up, which are disgusting at the moment. I think it's because people, they don't want to open up and talk, especially men. But I said I went for counselling, and it was brilliant. The woman I saw was incredible. And after the first session, she goes, I know what's wrong with you. I think I know what's wrong with you. I said, what's that? PTSD and depression. And she goes, yeah, you probably got them as well. But no, you're grieving. And I said, what do you mean grieving? That's when you physically die. And she said to me, you haven't physically got to die to grieve. She says, all grieving is the emotional reaction to the loss of any kind. She goes, people, when they're tendering for a big project in work that doesn't come off, tendering for this project for weeks or months, it doesn't come off, that's grieving. She goes, when you move departments in work, retire from job, have to give up a sport from an injury. So people, even when they have children, grieve, she said, because they can't go out as much. They haven't got as much money. You're grieving loss of identity. Because all I've heard off you today so far is, I used to play rugby. I used to look like this. You're grieving your old Andrew, your old life. She's going, so people watching this, I bet every single person on here is grieving at some stage of life. I don't mean a physical loss. I mean, if they've lost a job, retire, or changed their career, whatever, moved departments in work, even you lost your friendships and that. So grieving's massive, and I was trapped between the 7 stages of grief, and I think I was between number 2 and 6. Now, number 2 and 6 is arguing, bargaining, depression. Why did it happen to me? Why? And then number 7 is acceptance. I'm only really in acceptance. I'm not there fully yet, I don't think, but I'm getting there, and I'm much better now than I was a couple of years ago. But I had to work really hard on myself, and what I did, I held a mirror up to myself a few years ago, and I started working on myself, because most people in life, they don't look at themselves. They don't hold the mirror up to themselves. They just walk around saying and doing things. They're not very self-aware. And people say, oh, that's just the way they are. I say, no, it's not the way they are. They can if they want to change, they can change. And I know why people don't do it, because holding a mirror up to yourself is scary. You got to look at your flaws, your triggers, your faults. But I said, until you start doing that, you can't really blame everybody. Because in this country, we've got a huge blame culture. We blame your relationship, your job, you blame your kids, your father. Look at yourself first. Start looking inwards first before you start looking at everybody else. So I started looking at my triggers, my flaws, and my faults a couple of years ago and worked on myself. And it's been tough. It's been great. It's been enlightening. It's empowering. But I started looking at that. And I started doing that the last couple of years. So I'm in a good place now, really. I'm in a really good place in my life.
Well, I'm really pleased to hear you feel that way. That's great. What was it that made you, after all those years, go and see somebody? Hey, sales leaders, do you want a cost-effective way to develop your team's skills and help them smash their quotas? My Sales Coach offers team memberships for just £20 per month per individual plus VAT. This will give your reps access to small group tactical coaching sessions, daily power hours, and exclusive events, all led by world-class sales coaches. With over 25 group sessions to choose from monthly, There's something for every role. We have sessions for SDRs all the way up to CROs. Empower your team to perform to their best. Visit mysalescoach.com to get started. The link is in the description.
I wish I can give some amazing guru answer to be on one like light bulb moment, but there was a combination of lots of small things really, like pushing people away. And this thing, in this country, right, we get brainwashed, right, from a young age. We get in school, 5 years of age, 6 years of age, our self-worth and value as a human being starts getting judged by the material things and achievements in life. So if you're in school, if you get an A grade, the teachers love you. If you get an E grade or a D grade, you get written off. You start getting judged by people in school, the teachers in school. Go to university. You have to go to university to be successful in life. And you think, well, I don't want to go to university, but if I want to be successful, I have to go to university. Then your parents might start like conditioning you to fit in with society. Don't do this, be a doctor like your mum, be a teacher like your dad, do this like your brother. So you start getting compared. So you're playful, like when you're a child, you're the most authentic, real version of yourself when you're born. You're running around, you're playful, you've got no self-esteem issues, no confidence issues. Then we get conditioned to fit in with society. The teachers do it, your parents do it, and then we find a job then with the biggest salary possible in the corporate world because we're led to believe more money means more happiness. Or we go off to university and to study something, which is a total waste of time, but you thought, well, I got to do that because I want to be successful in life. So all these little things, and it's only when you get an awakening. I looked in the mirror when I was about 40 odd, and I had everything in life that I was told would make me happy. Because again, from a young age, we get led to believe that our happiness comes from external things, external achievements, material things, but it's not. Our happiness starts inside. It doesn't matter how big your house is, what car you've got, what trainers you're wearing, or if you've got 100,000, it doesn't matter. You could have as much money as you want, but unless you're happy with yourself, you'll never be happy. So I look in the mirror when I was 40 odd. I had a nice house, a nice car, good job, nice body, attractive girlfriend, but I still felt miserable. And I was thinking to myself, I got everything in life that I was told would make me happy from a young age, but I'm still empty. And the reason is, I think, you're climbing everybody else's ladder, everybody else's expectations, not your own expectation. They call it the second, there's a book called The Second Mountain. So I'm now at the bottom of my second mountain. I'm now building my life and doing what I want to do to make me happy, not to keep my parents happy, not to make them proud, not to fit in with my social circle or my friends. I'm doing what I want to do now. I know like 3 men, for example, in their 40s who took their own life in the last 12 months, who had very successful careers in London. I think it's because they got to the top of this ladder, they earned so much money, and they felt empty, and they lost their purpose in life, but they couldn't go backwards, and they said the only way out for them, the easiest way to do is, unfortunately, take their own life. They had children, married, their partners didn't work, they lived such a lifestyle, a high lifestyle. These men probably couldn't tell their partners they were struggling. So, and they didn't want to take a drop in salary. They couldn't afford to take a drop in salary. Big mortgages, nice holidays, fancy cars. So when you get to that status, it's tough. So people do take their own life. So yeah, I had a long answer, I know, but I held a mirror up to myself a couple of years ago and started working on myself, basically.
Do you know why though? Why a couple of years ago? Why not in 5 years' time? Why not 10 years ago? What was there a moment where you're like, it's time to pick the mirror up?
I met the man who saved my life 2 years ago. I tracked him down on Google, which is a bit creepy. There was lots of little things. I started working on myself and studying and reading and learning about myself and trying to find out why I was like I was, like why I got triggered by certain things, why. And then I met the man who saved my life. I tracked him down. I've always wanted to see the guy, but people say, why didn't you see him earlier? I said I wasn't ready. I wasn't in a good place back then. So I felt I'm in a good place about 2 years ago. So I sent him a long email saying, you probably don't remember who I am. This guy is really well respected in medicine. So he advises the government, for example. And then I sent him a long email. He replied a few days later saying, of course I remember who you are. Your injuries will always stay with me. So for him to say that, first of all, I thought, wow, that's he's operated on thousands of people. So I went to see him. I went to see him where he is, and I walked into his office, and it was a really emotional day. It's not every day you get the chance to meet the man who saved your life or shake his hand. And I walked in, and he said, wow, he said, you're a miracle. He said, you should be dead. You should have died on so many occasions. I can't believe how big and strong you are. It's incredible. So meeting him made me realize I got a second chance at life and how close I come to death. So I could either walk around for the next 30, 40, 50 years with a chip on my shoulder, resentful, angry, looking back at life, or I can use my trauma for good now to help inspire other people. Because I don't want people to struggle like I did for 25 years in silence, like lots of people do. I know I struggle in silence. Like I only spoke to my mother and father the first time ever about the accident 2 years ago. It happened 26 years ago. We bottled it. I didn't talk to anybody about it. Nobody really, apart from the counsellor. Yeah, so I wanted to start sharing my story and talking about people. And then talking about my accident and how I felt and how I was. And it was funny, the first video I put on social media, on Facebook, had thousands of views. I had hundreds of people messaging me saying, I can't believe you were going through that. You always seem a life and soul. You always seem bubbly and fun. I can't believe they felt I'm really sorry you're going through it. I said, it's fine. You don't have to be sorry about it. I wouldn't have shown you that side of me anyway. And if you had offered me help, I probably would have said no. And they said, lots of people messaging me saying, I felt exactly the same as that. Because a lot of my friends are gym people, corporates, doormen, bodyguards, gym people, the worst toxic massive rugby people. So I have lots of people messaging me now saying, I feel exactly the same as that. As a result of you now, I started now talking to my father, my brother, my sisters, my kids. So it had the knock-on effect, it had the effect I wanted, really.
It certainly sounds that way. If someone is listening and resonates and feels that way, how would you encourage them to pick up the mirror and start?
It's being brave and being courageous and being vulnerable. In this country, we think vulnerable is a weakness, but it's really not. It's a strength. And I was vulnerable to millions around the country on television. But yeah, it's being brave. It's having, and to be honest, it's about thinking the people around you who really matter, who care, they're going to love you exactly the same, no matter. And like I touched earlier on, I know it's very good to achieve things in life and get good grades and win things in life. But if you don't beat yourselves up. Don't think you're a bad person, because you're not. I said the people around you, your parents, your caregivers, your family, your brothers, they're not going to stop loving you if you don't achieve your grade, or they're not going to stop loving you if you miss your target in work, or the people who actually matter, they're going to love you exactly the same. So be brave and have that conversation, because in this, we build things up in our head, like I did for 24 years. I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy, because it's not. The research says 85% of what we overthink and what we worry about never ever comes true. 12% comes true, or 13% comes true, but nowhere near as bad as what we think. It's something like 2 or 3% comes true. So all this energy and worry we give this thought never comes true. So as I said, be brave and courageous. And I said, as soon as you start being open and vulnerable with yourself, your relationships to everybody around you will be much better, because they're getting the true version of yourself, not some persona you're putting off. It's about being authentic and being true. I took my mask off. Probably people watching this now wear masks. Everybody wears a mask. So I wore a mask for pretty much all my life, I suppose. So I took my mask off a couple of years ago. I'm being my true version of myself now. So I say to people, talk to people, have a good support network around you, and just make sure you talk to someone, really.
So Andrew, it's really interesting, and I've been smiling away because a couple of times you've hinted at your appearance on TV, and there's a nice segue there. You talk about wearing masks, and I spotted you at an event and had to come and talk to you about it. Before we get into that, just for anyone who has been living under a rock for the last 3 years, tell us all, what TV show were you on, and how would you describe it?
I could probably butcher this now. I probably won't give it the justice it deserves, but I was on a program it's a BBC program called The Traitors, where there are 22 contestants placed in a castle in Scotland. Claudia Winkleman's the host, and at the start we're around a table called the Roundtable. We're all blindfolded, and then Claudia will pick traitors amongst you. So we don't know how many there is. There could be 1, there could be up to 6 or 5, I think there was. And then once you take your blindfold off, the rest of you are called faithful. So you've got traitors and faithful. The whole point of the game, there's a few things. Every day you have a challenge to win money. And at the end of the game then is a prize fund, and the winner wins the prize fund. So every day you have to do a challenge. And then every night there's something called a round table. And the whole point of the game is to vote out the traitors. So you've got to vote the traitors out. Otherwise, if there's any traitors left at the end of the game, they win the prize fund. But also every night the traitors get to murder one of the faithful. Not really, but they don't literally murder them, but they can murder one of the faithful. So it's a game. It's a really clever game, to be honest, because during the day, to complete your mission, you have to work as a team. So they put you together as a team in the day. You're all high-fiving each other, hugging each other at the end. And then a couple of hours later, you're ripping each other apart at the round table. So it's a massive psychological game and a physical game, I suppose. So yeah, it's a clever game. Yeah, so that's it in a nutshell. That's the game in the castle in Scotland.
And I will go as far as to say, in recent years, in terms of, I think you'd call it a reality show. It's been one of my favourite watches. Like all 3 series, I've watched the Australian versions, the American versions. I'm a big fan of the show. I think the show's got some interesting flaws around like traitors getting to recruit people, and faithful, do they vote each other out? Is that a more sensible strategy? And like you say, you're working together during the day and the night time, and people sometimes vote tactically rather than actually going for traitors. But for all of that, I just think it's incredible TV. And I remember your series well. I remember you got to the final 4, didn't you?
Yeah.
But let's just go back a step. First of all, you've spoken about how it took you a long time to accept who you were, a long time to really show yourself to the world. Talk about going 100 mile an hour. You've gone from, saying that you could just lie in bed all day and not get up and not see anyone, to going on what was arguably the biggest TV show in terms of anticipation. Series 1 was huge. Series 2, everyone now wants to watch it, and you put yourself out there, which is incredible. How did you actually get picked though? Because there's thousands and thousands of people who have applied. I'm guessing through the application process, you use some of your sales skills to stand out and to be picked and to work with the producers. How did you land one of these 22 spots?
Well, initially, basically my previous partner made me watch the first series because I don't like reality TV. I don't really watch reality TV. I don't watch a huge amount of telly, to be honest, but she kept on. We're always thinking of things to watch in the nights on Netflix, for example. I mean, when a series finishes, what are we going to watch next? So she kept saying to me, oh, there's this program of yours that's really good called The Traitors. I said, I'm not watching reality TV. It's rubbish. I'm not watching reality TV. So she wore me down, like lots of women do. She wore me down, and I eventually gave in so that we can watch it, I said. But if it's rubbish, we're turning it off. So she put the first episode on. I'm thinking, it's all right, I don't mind it. I didn't tell her that, though. I said, yeah, it's okay, I don't mind it. At the end, she got to the first episode. What do you think? It's all right, I don't mind it, so it's not that, it's okay. I don't mind if you want to watch the next one. So we binge watched the first series over, probably, I think it was over 3 days. We watched the 12 episodes over 3 days. And the first series was on in November or December, something like that. December, right after Christmas it was. And I said, it's funny. I'd like to have a wouldn't mind having a crack or a go at that. And I put in the Cosmos, I think. So, and then in March, then the following year, I had a message on my Instagram from a casting director saying, your story looks incredible. You look like a nice person. Do you fancy applying for this show? Because I didn't initially apply. I didn't apply. I wouldn't have applied for it myself. I said to my partner at the time, I said, I don't care about being recognised in the street or whatever. And I said, but I could get a great profile and a great platform and connections now, do what I want to do now. Because I wanted to start talking about mental health and things that helping people with their mental health before the show came along. But I had, a couple of followers, not many followers. I never really used Instagram. So, I didn't really have any, connections or anything. So I only went on the show to get a profile I got now to help more people what I do now. So it had the effect I wanted. So initially they approached me initially, and then I had to go through the application process. And I think I always think, what would they want from somebody on telly? They want somebody with a good story who's nice to watch. They don't want somebody on the telly who's boring, because the viewers aren't going to watch that, are they? So I want somebody who's got a good story and just normal, I suppose. So yeah, I went through the process, and my story's my story. I couldn't make my story up. My story's my story, I suppose. So, and if you look at all the people in there, most of them have got a good story. Like Molly, for example, with their limb difference and stoma. There's lots of people on there who's got really good stories and backgrounds. So we're just normal people in a castle. We're not like celebrities. We're just normal people. We don't know each other from Adam. So yeah, we just chucked in this castle and thrust in the limelight, and it's a good series. It's really good.
I think that's the appeal of it to me, in the sense of you are just, as you say, normal people, and I think that's where the like American version, where it's got celebrities and pre-connotations and ideas around who each other are, doesn't quite have the same effect. But so that's interesting. So a producer reached out to you, saw your story, and quite rightly, you identified that as a great way to build a bit of a platform for yourself to do what you really wanted to do in life and share the story that you wanted to share. I love that. Let's go back to when you got into the castle then. You've obviously seen series 1. You're now in that castle. Did you have a strategy, and do you feel like your sales skills that you spoke about earlier, building trust, building relationships, empathy, listening, asking the right questions, did you start to think, okay, look, I'm going to take all of my learnings and use a strategy? What was going through your head?
I wish I could, honestly, if you could tell on the telly, I think, I wish I could say I did have amazing strategy. I didn't. I was just being myself. I thought I'll get to know everybody, be liked. I said, you don't want to say too much, otherwise you get voted off or murdered. But you don't want to say anything at all, because they look suspicious. So it's about getting that balance. And it's a tough game. It's a numbers game, like sales, I suppose, a numbers game, isn't it? You've got to get enough people on your side, use influencing skills to get people on your side. Otherwise, if you don't, you're gone, basically. As soon as the numbers turn against you, like Johnny, for example, it was 8 people against him. Like, so no matter what he said, once they're against you, there's nothing you can do to change their mind. And you don't know these people from Adam. So I done NLP, for example, neuro-linguistic practitioner, the study of human behaviors and that. But how do you know what these people are like outside the castle? So you don't know if they've changed their body language has changed. You don't know what they look like outside of the castle. So you're trying to pick up on little changes in behavior, but we're just guessing, but you're just clutching at straws most of the time. You think, oh, you're a traitor. Why? Or you scratched your nose. Or you sneezed. Or you're a traitor. So you're just guessing most of the time. And that's why I think every series so far, the Traitor's been winning 7-1, I think. Everyone, the Traitors are winning 8-1, they're 7-1. Because at the start, you're just guessing. to get caught as a traitor at the very start, you gotta be hopeless. I think you get caught out at the start as a traitor. When you're a traitor, you can see, you're watching it, you're seeing everybody, you're looking at everything that's going on. So you're playing chess basically, you're listening to other people. You haven't really got to do a lot. So when Harry won, to be a traitor from the very start is easier than change. I'm not just saying that, but from the start, you've got one game plan. You've got to say the same game plan the whole game. When you've got to change halfway through or later on, it's much harder. You're trying to change your game plan. And you also you start getting a bit paranoid that everybody's talking about you. You think you've changed. You probably haven't changed, but you just think you have. So like being a traitor from the very start, I think is easier. And all you're doing when you're a traitor, you listen to people arguing and you're just adding fuel to that fire. So if one person goes against the other and tells you, you think, I agree with you, I think they're a traitor. And all you're doing is adding fuel to the fire. Because if you watched Harry, he didn't have to say or do a lot, to be honest. He just had to like add a bit of fuel to each of the fires there. He just sat back and watched it unfold in front of him, really. So I don't know if he's really good or everybody else really bad.
I think the audience would wonder that as well. He had that key moment, obviously, where he got Paul banished.
Yeah.
That was a big moment. But here's a question I'd love to ask you, right? So, and you said at the start, people see sales as a bad word. I think you used dirty word. I can't remember the exact word you used.
Yeah.
Did you tell anyone in the castle you were a salesman?
No, I don't think I did. I'm an insurance broker. I think it was an insurance broker. Well, they thought of that, I don't know, but insurance broker. I was an insurance broker at the time. I was still doing my insurance job.
So you didn't openly admit, therefore, you had like 20-year career in sales, for example?
I don't think so, no, I didn't know. I started lying from day one.
Do you think that would have harmed you? Because I agree with what you said, like the perception, again, not people listening to this podcast, but the average person on the street, if you was to say, a little bit like when people have gone to the show and said they're an actor or an actress, like straight away, that's a trait behaviour. We saw in the last series, doctor by day, murderer by night. People try and take your occupation, but I think with sales, there is just that perception of manipulation, right? Again, like you say, putting fuel on the fire, but really, sales isn't about that. Like sales is exactly how you described it at the start. It's about only doing and helping someone solve a problem, and your job is to ask the right questions and to listen. But that perception is not going to be the reality of 22 people in the castle. Do you think if you would have been quite open and introduced, look, hi everyone, I'm Andrew and I work in sales, do you think you would have got as far as you did?
I don't think the people in the castle were that switched on. I probably would have, I think. I don't know. I think a lot of us did it just a bit of fun. I think it's a bit of fun. We didn't really play a game, or I think a lot of it's quite surreal. It's hard to say until you get into the castle. It's different. It's different. You watch it at home, and it's easy to when you watch it at home. You think, it's obvious who the traitors are, but obviously they edited it in a way to make it look good for the television. Don't get me wrong. Everything you see on the television is exactly like it is in real life. Nothing is scripted. They don't tell you what to do, what to say, but obviously they edit it. Like from day one, on the television who the traitors are straight from this first episode or second episode. But when you're in the castle, you wouldn't know that. And you don't get to spend a huge amount of time with each other in the castle, to be honest with you, because when you're filming, it's such a big place, such a huge, beautiful castle. You can't spend all your time with each other. So you've got two of you in this room, three of you outside, two in there, and then you have a couple of hours in the morning, reality TV or filming, and then all of a sudden you've got to get ready for the mission then, which takes a couple of hours of the day. You've got to have your health and safety briefing, you've got to drive to wherever you're filming. So that takes out a big chunk of your day. And by the time you get back then to the castle after filming the mission, you've got to get ready, have your dinner, and then you've got to go to the round table then. So you don't get a huge amount of time. You do get bits of time with each other, but it's not a huge amount of time to try and pick up on different behaviours and different, people say, twisting each other. You don't really get that much time with each other. So it's much harder when you're in the castle. It looks on the telly.
So I can well imagine, like you say, it's a 24-hour day and we get 60 minutes every night. So it's obviously trimmed down. You had to go from faithful to traitor, which, again, I remember that happening because you weren't happy about it. But it was a do or die situation. So if you wanted to stand the game, you had to do that. But I think just from everything you shared, just being a traitor wouldn't sit naturally to you, right? It's deceitful, it's lying, it's manipulating, it's doing all the things that you've had a whole career not doing. And again, you don't want to be seen like that. If you're seeing this as a platform where you can build a bit of a name and a brand for yourself, you don't want to come out as the bad guy. No one likes the arsehole that was on a reality TV show. So I imagine that was quite difficult for you, but equally you had no option. You wanted to stand the game and build your profile as long as possible. But how did you find that going from faithful to traitor and starting to lie overnight? How did you handle that emotional flip?
I think if you watched the show, you could see I was quite distraught. I wasn't very happy about change. It took a while to think about it. And then once I calmed down, and after I had the envelope on my chair, I thought if I didn't join them, I was going to get murdered. And that's what they told me. Paul and Harry said to me, "You're such a strong faithful. I didn't get any votes at the round table, so I won't get any votes at the round table." And then they said the only way you're going to leave is either getting murdered or joining us. So if you didn't join them, they were going to murder me the next night. So I did the right thing. And I thought to myself, at the end of it, it's a game. And I for the whole time I was in there, my feet were firmly on the ground. I'm not a stupid person. It is a game at the end of the day. It's an intense game, don't get me wrong, but it's a game. And I thought my family, they love me exactly the same. If I come first or 10th, it doesn't matter where I come. And I wanted to stay in the game. And I thought people will watch it. I was myself. I didn't lose my temper on the television. I didn't shout or cry or make anybody cry because I thought after the show, I want to do mental health and talks and that. So I can't very well be making Molly cry, shouting at her. And then a couple of weeks later, I talk about mental health. They're going to think, well, that's contradictory while you're on the telly. So I think I come across quite well. I haven't seen any bad feedback. And everybody said I was true. I was authentic. I was genuine. And that's what I am. I've always been the same. I can't be anything I'm not. And when people meet me now, they say, "You're exactly the same in real life as you are on the telly." I say, "What do you expect? I am a normal person. I'll never change the person I am. Don't care how successful I am or how much money I have. I'll never change. I'll always be the same person. And I'll treat every single person with the same respect. I don't care if you're a cleaner or a CEO of a huge company. I'll speak differently depending on who I got in front of me, but I'll give them the same respect and I'll treat them all exactly the same." I come from a council estate in South Wales, so I know where I come from. I've had to work really hard in my life to get what I have, and I've never been given anything in my life. My three brothers are the same. We're all successful. Yes, I'm genuine, authentic, and it's a game at the end of the day, but I didn't like because it goes against all my morals, really.
And I can sense that. And I can imagine that's difficult. But like you say, it is a game. That's exactly what it is. And you've got to sit at the table, so to speak. It's interesting what you said earlier. So I hadn't realised that, but it comes back to me. You didn't get a single vote at the round table. And I wonder, was that because you were doing what just subconsciously you've been doing for 20 years? Listening to people, asking questions, having empathy, being curious, being interested to be interesting, making it about them, not about you, just enough so you're not completely under the radar and suspicious, but really using your sales skills to build those relationships where you are seen as that trusted person. Like, it feels like, although you didn't have that strategy, that's who you are, and it served you really well. Is that fair?
I think you hit the nail on the head there, to be honest with you. I think everybody liked me, everybody trusted me, and I was listening to people. I didn't really manipulate anyone, or I didn't spread any gossip or I didn't lie at all. Really, I didn't have to lie at all. I didn't really say anything. I just got to know everybody, a little bit of everybody. I got on with everybody, I think, in there. And like I say, use my sales skill. Like I say, unbeknown to me, because that's what I've done naturally all my life, I suppose. Like I said, get to know little people, listen to people. And I didn't cause any suspicion towards me, I suppose. I didn't tell somebody one thing and tell somebody something different. I didn't do that. So you hit the nail on the head, I think, to be honest. Yeah.
And when you started wearing a cloak, I imagine that's a lot of fun, though, in a way, right? Like, it's a lot of fun. You get to sneak around the castle doing traitory things, and like, you get more time with the producers, and they probably make you feel a little bit more special and make you feel like you're a bigger star in the show. And I imagine it's a lot of fun. But was there a moment where you were having to tell lies and looking people in the face? And there's a classic phrase, "I'm 100% faithful, I promise." Like, were you at any point just really uncomfortable with that?
Oh, yeah, back to the cloak. I've loved Luke Skywalker growing up. So I thought I was a Jedi. So I loved Star Wars. Star Wars was my film. I loved Star Wars, all of the Star Wars films. So putting that cloak on made me feel like a Jedi Knight. So but the one thing I felt really bad for was Ross, because we recruited Ross. Me and Harry recruited Ross, brought him into the castle, brought him into the Traitors fold. And then we turned against the round table. And Ross, I think that was one of the reasons I lost. I could have won that game, I think, personally, because I was going under the radar and I was going to start talking to Molly and Jazz about Harry, because Jazz was 50-50 anyway. And Molly, I got on really well with her. I was like their dad. I was like Harry and Molly's dad. They were calling me dad, both of them. And they are younger than my son, actually. So I was going to approach things towards the end, the last few days or whatever. But then Ross went mental at the round table. He lost his head at the round table because I said the word elusive. So he said, "Oh, you called Harry elusive." And looking back, I don't know why I just didn't say yes, because I thought if I say yes, now Harry had quite a lot of people on his side. So if I'd said yes, Harry would have known I was going against him, so he would have got me murdered or banished the next night then. So I said to Ross, I didn't say that word. And he went mad, and he changed his vote to the round table from Harry, I can't remember, Jazz or something. He changed it to me. And after that, then everybody was saying to me, "Molly, why did he do that?" So I don't know. I thought, oh God, he's messed my chat. It's suspicious coming on me then. So like Molly after the show said to me, I didn't really suspect you up until that point. So like Ross cost me £95,000 really. I'm not bitter about it at all, but who needs £95,000?
Hopefully he's bought you a pint at least after the show.
I know.
How stressful was it? Because it's something that sit on the sofa, you watch it and you just think, I don't know if I could live with that stress of constantly either as a faithful not knowing, and I think that would drive me crazy. The not knowing, like, you know, in the morning everyone's celebrating, welcome to breakfast. I'd be thinking 3 of you are just liars. Like I'd really struggle with that side of it, and I think I would just. I think the producers have to take me aside and tell me to calm down because I'd struggle with that. But on the flip, wearing a traitor cloak and just having to constantly think, what have I said? How am I acting? What am I doing? It caused me such anxiety. Like, how stressful was it for you?
It was okay for me. The hardest bit was the round table's not nice, but I was fortunate where I didn't really get accused that much at the round table. So I saw people, Brian, for example, just totally crumbled. And he started muttering and talking to himself, and I don't know what happened to him at the round table. He's lost the plot. I think he accused himself at one point of being a traitor. I don't know what happened to him, but I'm a calm guy. I'm a cool guy. I've been a bodyguard for London. I've been a doorman, so I keep my calm, and I was okay. But it's not nice when people start accusing you. I was a faithful. When I got accused by Diane, I think it was, or I can't remember, somebody accused, I can't remember who. Even though I was a faithful, I felt you think you get hot inside. You start feeling hot, and you start getting, your temperature goes up, your adrenaline kicks in, and it's not nice. But I guess I've seen people, if you've got 2, 3, 4, 5 people against you, you're fighting a losing battle. But that's not a nice feeling. I saw like Johnny, for example. I felt so sorry for Johnny because I was going to vote for him, but by the time it got round to me, he'd already had 6 or 7 votes, and he was a broken man. He just sat there broken, and he's a great guy. He's a lovely guy, and I really got a lot of time for Johnny. And I thought, I'm not gonna kick him or hit him anymore. He's a human being at the end of the day, and all these people here, they're human beings. They got real lives. As soon as they leave this show, they got a real life for their friends and family. So I'm not gonna break people or upset people. But it is stressful. The round table can be quite stressful. But the game itself, and when you change from a faithful to a traitor, that's a bit strange because you just automatically start feeling guilty. It took me a few days to get into that role, I think, as a traitor. But the first few days, it looked so obvious on the television. It was so obvious. When I came to breakfast, for example, I was like shocked in breakfast, and it was so obvious I was a traitor.
Genuinely, if you've not guessed, I could just do the whole podcast talking to you about the traitors. But keen to move on, because I want to talk about what you're doing now. But before I do, just my last question. What's it like coming out of the show with that sudden level of attention and recognition? And I appreciate you wouldn't say you're famous today, but equally, I spotted you at a show and I'm like, first of all, I was like, I swear I've had a couple of discovery calls with this guy. Like, I didn't know where I knew you from, but then the penny dropped and I wanted to come say hello to you, right? And I'm glad I did because we sorted out the podcast, even though it cost me 20 quid because I lost a bet. For those listening, I bet Rich Smith what series you were in and I was wrong. I was so sure as well. But what was it like going from, just being a normal person? Like you used the word nobody earlier on, which is obviously not a nice phrase, but being a normal person to being recognised, having people follow you on Instagram and Twitter and people having an opinion of you. What is that like?
Nobody can prepare you for that, to be honest with you. Obviously, they're great with their well-being. Studio Lambert, who produced the Traitors, they're really good in their well-being. It went on for months. The application process goes on for quite a while, I suppose. And they tell you all that. Do you know what you're going to get involved in? And media and all this sort of thing. And people will come out to the woodwork and say nice things about you. And do you know what I mean? But nobody can actually prepare you until it actually happens. And when you're on the show, it's strange. Whenever you leave the show, you've got a different experience, I suppose, and it's hard. So, like Aubrey, for example. So for months and months and months, he built up in his head, I'm going to be not a celebrity, but I'm going to on this show, and then he gets voted off first. So there's months and months of planning. He gets voted off the first day. So like you didn't see Aubrey again then. And then obviously the other end of the scale and the winner, it's a totally different world he's in now. And like for me, I come fourth. So, and I'm quite a recognizable person, I suppose. I'm quite a big guy, scars, and I'm quite memorable, I suppose. So I get recognized all the time when I go places now. 18 months later, I get asked about it all the time. But the first couple of months was crazy. Wherever you go, in Cardiff or wherever I was, I'm sitting with my partner or sitting with my son, having a quiet meal or whatever, and you get so many people coming over to you, constantly coming over to you. Can I have a photo? The number of times I left early, wherever I was, to go home, it's just so overwhelming. It's just so much. And I like talking, as you can tell. I like talking and meeting people. And everybody come up to me. They were all amazing, lovely feedback. You're such a great guy. You should have won. You're the best traitor. You're lovely. You're a lovely story. And so I never had any bad feedback, but it's still sometimes you want a bit of privacy to sit with your family or sit with somebody, but it's relentless. And you sat on a train coming back from Manchester and people walking past, kind of taking photos or sneaky photos you on the sly and that. And you can see them doing it under their arm or something, taking a photo and that. It's funny. But I can't imagine how real celebrities, how they manage all that constantly all the time. You know, these big celebrities where it's like everything you say, everything you do is in the papers straight away. Like I went for a massage or if I went to see a chiropractor. The next day I posted on my Instagram. I've been seeing him for a couple of years. I posted on my Instagram that day, or in the newspapers then the next day. This is where Andrew keeps his body in shape, this guy. Literally the next day, I put on my Instagram. The next day, it's all over the newspapers, in the Sun, the Daily Mirror. It's going to see a chiropractor. It's funny. Like, it's not even good news. It's rubbish news, to be honest. But yeah, it's funny. They write about. So it's fun. I just think it's a bit of fun to me. I enjoy it. And I'm not a celebrity. People know you're famous, and I say I'm just a normal guy. I'll never change. But there are some negative downsides to it as well. Other people come out the woodwork telling lies on you, trying to manipulate and tell lies and sell stories now. So it's not nice. It's stressful as well.
So I should ask Andrew, like, because everyone else will be thinking this, when you're sat at home watching it back on TV, I'm guessing it's like 5-6 months later. What does that feel like?
Cringy. I hate the sound of my voice. I don't hate anything, but the sound, you don't sound anything like in real life. Well, I don't think you do. And it's the same whenever I talk to people. People say, that's what you sound like though. I don't think I sound like that. It's the same as probably when you listen to yourself back or anybody listens to themselves back. You don't sound like that, and I don't get to see it on the television. I don't get to see it before you. So I'm waiting, the same as everybody else around the country, waiting to watch it. And like you said, I filmed it 5 months, 6 months before. So I can't remember what happened or what I said 6 months ago. So I'm sat there thinking, oh, please don't say it. But I know I didn't do anything bad anyway. But yeah, you can't remember half the stuff you did and said. And it's funny when you're watching it back. So every Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I sat there waiting, watching with your family, waiting to see it. And obviously, the edited version is incredible. It's like a film, to be honest with you. The owl everywhere, and it's brilliant. It's brilliant what you see on the telly. But it's strange when you listen to people talking about you, and you listen to people what they said behind your back and things, and it's quite funny. Yeah, but yeah, it's funny. It is strange though. It's very strange.
Did you all have like a big WhatsApp group?
We have still got the WhatsApp group, yeah.
And if you don't mind, because I always find like, what's the name of the group? Is there anything interesting other than Traitors 2024?
Traitors Family, it's just called. No date, just Traitors Family.
And is every contestant in it?
Yeah.
Good stuff. Right. So, again, you can tell I love the show. I could talk to you about that for the whole podcast, but I really want to talk about now what you're doing since, because that was the aim, right? If I can get on this show, I can build a platform for myself, can really talk about mental health and drive that awareness. So after the show, you've come out, you've launched Andrew Jenkins Coaching. Tell us, what does that business do?
My main income stream, or what I do mainly, what I enjoy, my passion is two things, I suppose. Doing the keynote talks, but I call them educational talks. I don't like to call myself a keynote speaker or a motivational speaker because they are so boring. I've seen so many of them over the last 20 odd years in rugby clubs and things. I'm thinking, yeah, good talk. But I'm relatable, so I call myself an educational speaker, or I like to call them educational talks, because I want the audience to take things away they can implement in their lives, with their friends, their families, their work colleagues, for example, because my story is relatable to millions in this country. So my upbringing was fine. I know my upbringing was good. We just didn't talk about feelings and emotions and that. So, I talk about failure. I thought failure was a bad thing growing up. And I wouldn't step in my comfort zone. So I stayed in my comfort zone or my fixed mindset for many, many years. Now, the last couple of years, I've stepped massively out my comfort zone, but I enjoy it. I got a growth mindset now. So I talk about that. I talk about social media. I talk about a lot of social media, which I've been involved in a lot the last year, which is massive at the moment. So I do a lot of talks, and I also like working in schools with the younger generation, because I think if you want to change the culture in this country, we have to educate the next generation, the kids, the children, because it's all very well me standing up in front of corporate companies, women and men in their 30s, 40s, 50s. But then if you want to have change in this country, we got to talk to the younger generation, talk to them about, feelings, emotions, and it's okay to fail. It's not a bad thing. And I love going to schools and talking to kids, and that's my purpose, I think, and my passion in life. Meeting that doctor who saved my life, he gave me my purpose in life, which is what I'm doing now. I also do lots of workshops as well around resilience, vulnerability, leadership. So I break my talk down into like different workshops, really. So what I've been through, what I experienced myself in a corporate world. And it's funny, I tick lots of boxes. I've been in a corporate world for 30 years successfully. I was told I'd never walk ever again. I've been in a coma. I lost my self-confidence. My self-esteem was nothing, and no self-esteem. So I talk about that, which is a massive problem at the moment. Yeah, so I everything I talk about is things that I've experienced and overcome myself, to be honest. So nobody can ever say to me, what do you study a textbook for 5 years, or what do you know? Well, I know because I've been through it myself.
I think that leads back to what I labelled for you as a superpower that you didn't mention, storytelling. Coming from a place of I've done this, and that's what lands with people. Authenticity. This person's walked and lived and breathed the story they're sharing. I've got your workshops in front of me, so in no particular order. Well, they're all on your website, so maybe there is a particular order. But one's called Dare to Be Real: The Power of Vulnerability in Leadership. One is the failure is not final, so cultivating a growth mindset in teams. Then we got the resilience revolution, which is empowering leaders to combat burnout. And then there's thriving minds, unleashing the power of mental well-being at work. I'm sure you'd say all of them, but if you had to pick, what's your favourite one to deliver and why?
I enjoy I like them all, but I enjoy the failure one, to be honest with you, because there's such a stigma out there, the failure. And I've been through it myself in my sales job, I suppose, where leaders used to shame people into performing. I say you're not going to get the best out of your staff by shaming them. You're bottom of the league table, you're bottom of the KPI, you're at this KPI. And like in the bank years ago, if you didn't hit your target, the individual target that day, or you didn't sell your PPI, for example, on a loan, sometimes the manager would make you stand up in the morning huddle in front of the whole branch, tell the branch why the branch didn't hit its target yesterday, or why you didn't do your PPI yesterday. They're trying to make you look, shame you. And I say, that's the wrong way of doing things. Like vulnerable leading is good, and people think vulnerable is like the boss is crying or making sure they're weak. I say it's not about that. It's about humanizing yourself, and it creates a much better culture in your workplace, in your environment, in your office. I said, because when you're at the top of the ladder, when you're an employer, looking at these MDs and CEOs of these large companies, and you're thinking, they're like God, they're untouchable. They never make any mistakes. They're perfect. So take the leaders. Admit to your staff you've made mistakes in the past, but also how you overcome them. And then, so people can say, well, making mistakes or fail is not a bad thing. I won't get chastised. I won't get dragged over the coals or made to look stupid if I'm open and honest. Because if you are vulnerable, people in your workplace, everybody wants to contribute. Nobody's scared of failing. Everybody contributes good ideas. It's a much innovative, creative company as well. So that's what I think it is really. So yeah.
So here's what's difficult about the sales world and being vulnerable and failure. And I want to hear what you say to this. But you mentioned right at the start, egos. I believe everyone in sales, I believe most people in general, but everyone in sales has an ego to some extent, right? Like it can be really small, really big, but everyone's got a level of ego. It just depends where they are on the scale. So there's ego there. Then there's no one really wanted to be in sales. We all sort of fell into sales, right? Like no one grows up saying they want to be a salesperson. When you go into schools, I bet no one says to you they want to grow up and be a salesperson.
Especially an insurance broker. Nobody ever wants to be an insurance broker.
Right, exactly. And then you've got the failure. Well, if you fail, you lose your job. And actually, if you fail a couple of quarters in a row, you can lose your job. It can be very hard. And then, like you say, it's leaderboards, it's KPIs, it's targets. Every part of a sales rep is measured on revenue and activity, and they're successful one quarter, and it's back to zero, and there's that competition. And then you've got the ego side of things. Like it's such a cauldron of emotion that you can understand why people are afraid to fail. And here's the biggest problem: when you're afraid to fail in sales, it leads to the wrong behaviors that you push onto your prospects. That's when you start selling the wrong thing. That's when you start acting desperate. That's when you start being pushy. That's when you stop doing what you said. Why do you even want this product? What is it wrong with your product today? What room are you going to watch the TV in? Why are you going to use it? Whatever example, whether it's TVs at Curry's, it's finance products at Lloyds, or insurance products. But it's really difficult. How can we embrace this as a salesperson, failure? How can we embrace this? And
it is tough. I'm not going to say, again, I'm not going to sit there and say it's easy, because I've been under lots of pressure over many years, I suppose, where, you know what I mean? But I think it starts from the top of a company. It does start from the top. But I say to people, nobody really goes to work to do a bad job. Don't get me wrong. There are people out there who are sabotaged, but that's a different conversation altogether then. So I think there's a skill issue. There's a will issue. People have a skill and a will. If they've got a will issue, that's a different conversation. And if they've got a bad attitude or change, that's something different. So that's maybe a coaching plan or a PIP or whatever. But I think if you've got a skill issue, is that you recruited that person for a reason. You obviously believed in that person when you recruited them. They got the skills, they got the knowledge, they got the experience. You obviously liked that person, recruited them. Then, coach them, nurture them, give them the right skills and the right tools to be able to be successful. People go through bad times in life, and, outside things in work might be causing that. And people say, don't bring things into work. We're all human. We all got feelings and emotions. If you're going through a divorce or somebody's died, of course you're going to bring it into work. We're not robots, are we, at the end of the day? And, I used to take my things into work sometimes, but like it's having a good manager to try and know their staff and find out what makes them tick. And when I did when I was a manager for many years, lots of different branches I worked in, I always I treat every member of my staff as individuals, but also found out why they came into work that day. What makes them get up every single day and come into work every day? And people say, money. I said, no, it's not money. Everybody can say more money. It's what are you going to do with that money? Or send my little boy to university, buy my girl her first car. Right. So that's your motivating factor. That's your purpose. And every time you want to stop doing something or do something, remember your purpose or your why. So it's about treating your employees and finding out, treat them all as individuals and actually find out what makes them tick. I suppose we're also coach them and nurture them, give them the right skills to be successful. So I think everybody's got the ability to be successful with the right coaching, the right support.
I believe that as well, wholeheartedly. The challenge is time. Most people don't get the time that they need to be successful. And like sport's a really good analogy for that. I can't really talk rugby to you because you'd find out I don't have a clue about rugby. But when it comes to football, like management is just a great example. If you're not successful, you can lose your job after 6-7 games. In sales, it's a couple of quarters. I think what you said is really interesting though, right? So first of all, let's talk about recruitment. Like you say, is it a skill or a will thing? One of the things that's really interesting, so at My Sales Coach, we provide evaluations where we can evaluate salespeople and we evaluate them against 21 core sales competencies and it benchmarks them against 2.5 million salespeople. It's incredibly detailed, scientific, research-proven, validated assessment. But the number one competency that's the most important is commitment. If they're not committed, no matter what you do, they are not going to be successful. So I think if the commitment's there, that's the will thing. Then it comes down to a skill thing. And like you say, you've hired them, you believe in them, but it comes down to now enabling them and coaching them. Here's the problem. In sales, and you've experienced this, good salespeople get promoted because they're good salespeople. That doesn't make them a good coach. And you've said yourself, there's good coaches and bad coaches. How do we solve this conundrum in sales? Looking to unlock your team's full potential? At My Sales Coach, we pair individuals and teams with expert coaches for personalized one-to-one and group coaching sessions. Our platform makes booking seamless, it tracks progress, and delivers real results. Studies show expert coaching increases win rates by 30% and revenue by 7%. Whether you're an individual or a team leader, we provide coaching that sticks and delivers. Visit mysalescoach.com, use the link in the bio and start achieving your goals today.
I see it so many times where people get promoted in the bank, for example, to management positions because they were good at sales. I said, they're two totally different skill sets. They're totally different. I said, salespeople got one different, I'm not saying they can't be, but a lot of the time, these good salespeople are quite ruthless and they're good salespeople, whereas the management are more nurturing people, more empathetic, and they're different skill set altogether. So I know lots of people who've been promoted thrust into a management position and they fail then because they don't get the right level of support and coaching, they haven't got the right tools, and they end up feeling vulnerable or failing as a manager then because they weren't given the right skills. They end up on a pip and end up under so much pressure. I said, well, no, it's the bosses, it's the people at the top's fault for giving them that job in the first place. They haven't done anything to prove they're a good manager. I was a good salesperson, but I like to think I was a good manager as well. But because I'm a good listener. So that's a really important thing when you're staff. I got to know the customer, I got to know my staff as well. So I could transition between sales and management quite smoothly, to be honest, apart from the compliance. I learned all the compliance and the background stuff. But I treat my staff really well. I was a good listener to my staff as well. So I always try and find out what's going on at home as well. Try and find out what's going on in their lives outside of work as well. It's really important to make that staff member feel valued. And there was one occasion, for example, where there was one lad, he used to come in late every day and nobody had taken the time to sit with him and find out why. They all used to slag him off and behind his back and they're saying, he's a pain, he's coming in late all the time. So the branch used to open at 9 o'clock and then you have to be up and running by 9 o'clock. So I say, right, take your emotions out of the situation. I've always learned, if you want to have a difficult conversation, take the emotion out of it, base it on facts and evidence. So he's come in late, but I used to make a note of it for a week or two. When I went to the branch I was working, I made a note of it. And I sat him down. I said, what time do you have to, what's your opening hours, your working hours? And he said, you got to be up. I said, right, so tell me then, why did you come into work 10 past? So he can't argue back with that then. If I hadn't had that evidence, I said, you come late. He would have said, no, I'm not. I said, yeah, you are. And it ended up in an emotional thing. Emotion would have got involved then. He was a nice guy as well. So I say to people, strip the emotion out of the situation and base it on evidence and facts. And nobody can really argue with that then. So I said, tell me, but I dug deeper because I'm a firm believer in everything in life in something called root cause analysis. Get to the root cause of the problem, peel back the layers of the onion. There's lots of analogies for it. So I drilled down. Basically, his partner was suffering with severe depression and they had 2 young children. So he was having to try and get the kids ready for school in the morning, look after his partner, get to work on time. So he was stressed to the max, and he carried on for months. So I just said to him, right, simply, there's a few things we can do. We could change your working hours from 9 to 9:30 start and have half an hour for lunch. And that's what we did in the end. It changed this guy's life. Everybody in the branch knew that he started at 9:30. So rather than slagging him off and moaning behind his back, they knew he started at 9:30. And they said, right, he starts at 9:30, now he has half hour for lunch to make up for lunchtime. So like, he said to me, nobody ever sat to me and taken the time to find that information out. They all just put me on a pip. They all just said this and said that. He was a problem employee, if you like. But I took the time to sit down and drill, and that's, I think, it's really important. That's why you've got to treat all your staff members individually. And like I said, I don't think he wasn't doing it on purpose. There's a reason behind something. And I always try and look at people and I think, right, why are they saying that? Why are they acting like that? And there's always a reason, most of the time, there's a reason behind it.
I think there's two sides to that story. So one, you've done an incredible job of separating emotion to logic, and getting to the root cause. So you've done a good job there. But here's the problem that we're not talking about, that we have discussed earlier. That individual, let's give them a name. Like, I don't mind if you use a fake name. What's their name?
David.
So David is suffering in silence. Why is David not speaking up? And again, this is the world of sales, right? We come into a sales role. We've got pressure. Every week you start back at zero. Every month, every quarter back at zero. KPIs tight. But we're human beings, as you mentioned about people in the track. Human beings. You're going to go home or leave the show, whatever. Go back to your normal lives, and everyone's got their own shit to be dealing with. When you come into work, we feel like we can't speak up. We can't say, I need help. Why is this? Why do people feel this way?
It's fear, isn't it? I think it's fear. Fear of failure, fear, scared. If their manager's not very open and not very open about talking about things, you feel scared. You're scared, I suppose, and fear of being dismissed, fear of being sacked, fear of being put on a coaching plan, fear of being put on a pip. And nobody wants that. That's all added stress and pressure. And there's so much pressure out there at the moment. In the world in general, it's just a fearful world. I think everybody's stressed, and money's a big problem with everybody at the moment, and it's a tough world out there at the moment. Do you mean? But I think a lot more leaders and managers and team leaders need a lot more coaching and support. I think to show them the benefits of looking after their employees' well-being. Tell the manager, if you started doing this, you get X, Y, and Z off the back. Your employees, like that boy, I had his loyalty. And after I did that for him, I could have told him to ask him to do anything. He would have done it for me. He worked extra hours, not being asked. Because he felt listened to, seen, and valued. And that's what all people want these days, is feel listened to and valued and seen, I suppose. And he did. So after just taking that time to have that conversation, and people say, I get it, people don't want to have a difficult conversation. I said, but it doesn't have to be a difficult conversation. If you base it on evidence, fact, like targets, for example, your target is this, but are you coming at this? They can't argue with that. But also find out why. Is there something going on? Why? Do they need more support regarding objection handling? Do they need more support around telemarketing? Do they need more? Find out what it is and give that person that support and coaching them to be successful. Because when I was a manager, my whole team was successful. It wasn't just me on my own being successful. I got a buzz out of everybody else in that team being successful. And I was helping coach them, nurture them. And I struggled with that for a while, actually, to be honest. Because I love hitting my own personal targets. I love being the best. And when I was a manager for the first year or two, my boss would say to me, you didn't work till 9 o'clock every night. Your team have gone home at 5 o'clock. You're doing all the work. You're doing all the sales. Give them to other people. I said, no, but nobody can do a good job as me. He said, I know, but you've got to try and coach and sell and help them to be as good as what you are. Otherwise, you get burned out. And he said, how good a manager are you if you're doing more sales than your team? What are they going to think? They're not getting coached or helped or support. Because I was there rushing around seeing all the customers and I was busy. And I found it really hard to not let go. I found that really hard to try and, I'd rather do the sales and see the customer myself than help coach other people. I did find it really hard to not step away completely, but I found it tough. So I was doing more sales than my salespeople. I was hitting more sales than them every day, every week, every month. For the first 2 years, probably, I'd say, my management career.
I think every manager listening to this will resonate because you've been a top performer, you've been promoted, you know what success looks like, but now you've got to cross the chasm of helping someone else fill that gap. And you mentioned you got, so at least one. How many children have you got?
I got one boy, he's 24 years.
So did you teach him to ride a bike at some point in his life?
Yeah.
A little bit like, I remember when I taught my son last summer to ride his bike, I had to say to him at the very beginning, you are going to fall off. You are going to hurt yourself. You are going to cry. But at the end of this, you will be able to ride a bike confidently. But we don't want to let our kids fall off the bike. We want to do it on grass when grass is really hard to ride. You want to ride it on the bike. It's really tough, right? Like that analogy of you've got to let them fail. And I think that's the difficulty that sales leaders have, because they've been promoted because they're good at sales, not because they're a good manager. And you've got to create an environment.
Is it back to ego? I think it's back to ego, isn't it? I like being top of the league table. I like hitting targets. I like being top of the table. I like being the best, to be honest. After being a sporty all my life, being a winner, I like to be, it is an ego thing. It's letting go of your ego, which is tough. Like you said earlier on, I think not just salespeople, every single person's got some little ego inside them. How big or small that is, I think that's fine, but everybody's got a bit of ego. Everybody has.
And social media in the last 15 years has done nothing but exaggerate that.
It's terrible. Yeah.
And that need for approval, etc. As I say, it comes back down to, though, your favourite talk to deliver. And I know you like them all, but that failure, right? And that's the difficulty. One of the things that you've mentioned a lot, it's almost like you were prompted, even though you was not, is coaching, right? Like you spoke a lot about the impact of coaching. Here's the thing that I know you know to be true, but I just want to get your hot take on it. Most salespeople, most managers do not get coaching. And if they do, it's not regular, it's infrequent, it's too late. Why do you think that is? And more importantly, what impact can regular coaching have on sales professionals and managers? It's
really important. Coaching is so important. And it doesn't matter if you're a top performer. It doesn't matter. Like, look at all, footballers. I go back to football. Cristiano Ronaldo as a coach. He's the best. I think personally, this is subjective. I think he's the best player, better than Messi, but that's my opinion. That could cause a massive debate, but I think he is. But he hasn't got a coach. Of course he's got a coach. Every sportsman and a boxer, world champion boxer, Usyk, he's got a coach. He's a full belt world champion and he's got a coach. So sales is exactly the same. Because every now and again, you may get complacent. If you've got a growth mindset, I crave feedback after every talk I do, after every workshop, whatever I do. I say to people, I want feedback, good and bad. The only way I'm going to learn and get better is with not constructive feedback. Because there's some feedback is just pointless. And there's other people who can't give feedback. Giving feedback's a skill as well. Listening is a skill. But some people give feedback, but it's not constructive. You can't take nothing from it. So constructive feedback, how you give the feedback, make sure you don't damage somebody's confidence or really batter them. Give them in the right, but get that person, give you the answers. Say, how do you think that went? And let them tell you. And normally, if you're an aware person or a switched on, you'll know if something hasn't gone right or wrong. You know, if it's a sportsman, as a salesperson, you know if something's gone wrong. And normally, people come up with their own answers themselves. So you get, rather than you telling, I think you should have done this. If you tell somebody how to do something, the chances of them doing it or continuing to do it are slim. But if they come up with the answers themselves, they think they come up with the answers themselves, or they are, they're going to be more likely to do it and carry it on then. So, so I think it's really important to listen to, so it's an important skill, it is, yeah.
It certainly is. And look, Andrew, I'm conscious we're coming towards the end of our time together. I've loved so many of the things that we've spoken about today, and I feel like we share a lot of beliefs in terms of what sales is, the importance of coaching, Ronaldo being the best. I certainly agree with you there. I found it a really interesting podcast. Like we've had some real sobering moments, and I love how much you shared, but it's been sobering to sit and listen. Actually, tough as the host to sit and listen to some of the things that you've gone through and think, am I asking the right questions? Because most people don't open up like that, and I really applaud you for that. But then we've had some real highs. Like, I've loved talking about the Traitors. I've loved hearing about how you sold and got into that world. I love what you're doing with your life now and Andrew Jenkins coaching. Tell us, where can people come to book you and find you? Give us all your handles, so to speak.
Oh, here we go. I'm not really good at this sort of thing. It's my Instagram is at Andrew Jenkins Official. My LinkedIn is Andrew Jenkins. And then my website is www.andrewjenkins.co. But I say my Instagram is more of a fun thing, I think. It's more of a relevancy thing. My LinkedIn is more a professional platform. I've used that for probably 25 years, LinkedIn in banking, insurance. So LinkedIn is more, most of the people come to me through LinkedIn, to be honest. My website as well. But my website is, I don't update it all the time. As I said, I'm not very good at that sort of thing. So my Instagram, my LinkedIn get updated all the time with work I'm doing, with things I've done recently. So you're able to see what I'm doing. Yeah, but that's, they're the most recent ones, I suppose. They're the best way to get hold of me. My coaching style, I think, is different. It's like you just said, my coaching is more of a storytelling coaching through storytelling. So I get them to tell me story. It's like a general chat, and there's lots of light bulb moments that go off, and then I share my story. I've experienced so much in my life. I've experienced more than most people go through their whole lives, to be honest with you. So, and I like getting out and walking and talking. I like getting out walking. Nature is so important. It's so good for my physical and mental health. So rather than sat in a coffee shop all the time, I love a coffee, but when you're helping someone or coaching or wanting somebody to talk and open up, I find getting out in nature and walk or go for a walk somewhere is much easier. The person feels it's not so confrontational, standing side by side, walking with someone and just chatting, like it's like chatting with a mate it is, where it's sat opposite someone or even driving the car, for example, is another good thing to do. You sat next to someone and you just chat and you end up opening up and talking. So my coaching style is I try and get out to the office and get out somewhere and have a walk around and chat for an hour or 2 hours just walking around. And I find people just feel more comfortable out in nature with a bit of vitamin D, a bit of serotonin and outside. They feel much better.
It sounds like what you've identified is the key is to get people to speak, to start that conversation, which most people don't. And it sounds like you've done that exceptionally well. I encourage anybody to reach out to you, try and attend one of your talks, try and come to one of your sessions. And I can confirm you are very responsive on LinkedIn. You've always replied to me very quickly. And it's been an absolute pleasure, Andrew, having you on the podcast. I hope you've enjoyed coming on, because I imagine this is quite different to the podcast you've been doing since the Traitors, right? I imagine it's quite different. So
it's very good, very, very professional, actually. It's very good. And I've enjoyed it, thoroughly enjoyed it. You're a nice guy. You've created a safe space for me, which is really important. That's the problem with people with mental health. People don't talk because they haven't got a safe space. They feel, people, they feel judged or something. So I think it's really important. If somebody's struggling with mental health, especially in the workplace, be there for that person. Don't walk past somebody. If you know somebody's struggling in work with they haven't hit their target, they're going through a separation or divorce, don't walk past it. And I get why people do, is they're scared, they don't want to trigger people. But I say to people, I'd rather you talk and have an awkward conversation now or you cry than come to your bedside in 6 months' time, or even worse, your funeral. And I'd rather, don't walk past it. Like if you notice Dave, for example, started coming in late every day, he don't have his lunch, or he stopped eating his lunch, just say to him, "Hi Dave, I noticed you started coming in late. Is everything okay?" Just have that conversation. And a lot of the time when people are struggling, all they want is somebody to listen to them. They want somebody to sit in the trenches and listen to them. They don't want fixing. They don't want answers. They want somebody just to listen to. So I say, I think a lot of these suicides out there could have been prevented if somebody had a safe space. So that's really important. So don't walk past anybody who's struggling, really.
Well, let's make that a call to action. For everybody listening, why don't you just text one person today and ask how they are? Right? That's the start point. That would be an amazing place to finish, but I have to ask you one more question, and it's the last one. I wrote down second mountain ages ago. What is your second mountain? And let's end there.
I want to change the world. I want to close my eyes on my deathbed. Hopefully that'll be a long time away. Knowing I made a difference to this planet. I made an impact to the planet. I've saved lives. I had a message of somebody, a 16-year-old boy last week, actually. He said he was thinking of taking his own life, but he decided not to do it because he's seen my videos and how I turn my life around and motivation. So when I get messages like that, and that's quite a regular thing, I get messages of people all the time saying how much I'm helping them, and that's what keeps me going. So when I'm tired, when I'm stressed and feel down, I want to quit and I've had hard work, things like that keep me going. So I just want to help people, basically. I want to help support people and give back to people. I don't want people to struggle in silence like I did for 24 years, really.
I've got no doubt you will continue to impact and change many people's lives. And I've loved the chat. I do say this quite regularly on every podcast. I wish we had more time. I wish we had more time. There's loads more. But what I'm confident now is I'll probably see you at an event again like we did in Leeds. And maybe next time we'll grab a beer. But thanks for coming on, Andrew. You've been amazing.
Take care. Thank you, mate.